is Agent Demars, Brevard County Sheriff's Office Criminalistic Unit. We are at Holder Park.
On the morning of April 4th, 1989, hours after Chip Flynn's murder, Agent Debbie Demars arrived on scene at Holder Park shortly before dawn. It's the place where Chip and his ex-girlfriend Kim Halleck sat and talked in his truck, and where Kim says a black man approached the vehicle. Demars recorded her observations.
The crime scene begins with what we believe to be suspect shoe prints that initiate at this point.
Holder Park is a popular, well-trampled site for local baseball games. Agent Demars and the crime unit team were there specifically looking at the tire tracks of Chip Flynn's truck, along with shoe prints that they thought could belong to the perpetrator. Agent Demars assumed that the alleged attacker arrived at the park in a vehicle, and she tracked shoe prints
Heading in a west direction up into the area between the trees, which is where the victim's vehicle was parked, along with the two victims, prior to the abduction.
But oddly, Demars also saw those same suspect shoe prints exiting the area towards a baseball field, not disappearing as they would if the wearer had gotten into a truck.
The shoe prints, after proceeding west, will then continue on around just to the outside of this fence, with the last shoe print being seen just north of the second cement pole.
As Agent Demars continued her investigation, local news crews descended on the scene.
About 200 yards down this road is apparently where the murder occurred. Sheriff's officials tell us all three got out of the truck and then both men fired shots.
The next day, April 5th, the newspaper featured a photo of Demars helping another agent pull up a plaster cast of a shoe print. And just below that, a police sketch of a black man. The image reflected the details that Kim Halleck had given officers about the alleged assailant. And now police were asking for help as they searched for a black male. It didn't take long for people to start pointing fingers at Crosley Green.
I wanted the person who done it. I wanted justice done at all costs.
But what exactly was justice 35 years ago in the small Florida communities of Titusville and Mims? It's an area where racial lines have been clearly drawn for generations, and where animus and fear still lived right below the surface. I'm 48 Hours correspondent Erin Moriarty. This is Murder in the Orange Grove, the troubled case against Crosley Green, Episode 2, Rumors. Okay, first thing, I just want you to introduce yourself, tell me your name, and how long you've lived in Titusville and Brevard County.
My name's Timothy Lee Curtis. I've lived in Titusville basically my entire life, and I'd like to say that's 26 years.
But it's a little longer.
I lived in Titusville 63 and a half years.
I've been interviewing Tim Curtis off and on for 25 years, most recently in late spring of 2024. His family ran a local body shop in Titusville, Florida for decades. It's where deputy sheriffs would bring in their cars for service. So Tim was privy to a lot of gossip around town. He's a friendly guy to have a beer with, but I've learned over the years there's more to him than he lets on. How big a story was this? How big a case in town?
We were a small town back then. And we have a young guy that was allegedly murdered by a black guy. So that was very, very heated in the community.
The town of Titusville sits smack dab in the middle of Florida's East Coast. It's part of the state that's also known as the Space Coast, since it's home to Kennedy Space Center. Titusville is relatively small compared to nearby Orlando. Mims, an incorporated area of Brevard County, is even smaller. There's no high school in Mims. The entire area is assigned to Astronaut High School in Titusville. And that means people know each other. People like Tim Curtis. Did you know Kim Halleck at all back then?
Yes, I knew the Halleck family very well.
And Tim became close friends with Chip Flynn after selling him a truck. The same truck that Chip was driving the night he was killed.
I think Chip was just a young, ambitious boy like most of us were, that had a whole life ahead of him, that, was very excited when I sold him the truck, that he had this beautiful, nice truck to drive around. For a young guy, that's back then it was cars, trucks, and girls.
Tim had also known Crosley Green and his brother O'Connor since they were teenagers. You were good friends with O'Connor, weren't you?
Yeah, I admired O'Connor. We admired O'Connor because he was such a phenomenal football player. And I've known Crosley many, many years. I mean, he liked to run smack from his mouth. He was the type of guy that would probably steal your lawnmower if you were sitting on it and you not know it was stolen. That in particular day of the crime, I ran into Crosley because I used to jog, and I ran by his house, and me and him exchanged some words. No heated words. We were just, his dog had run out after me, and I'd said some things, don't let your dog bite me, it ain't going to end well, kind of thing.
And what did Crosley say back?
He may have said something like, and if I remember correctly, he used the word Cracker. Cracker, don't you hurt my dog, Cracker, now, or so, that. Then I'll use some words back at him as to, you better get your dog, Crosley.
Tim had told me something similar when I first spoke with him in 1999.
They said that the guy who done this was using the word cracker a lot. And I think that there alone, to be honest with you, stuck with me.
It stuck with Tim and would further convince him that Crosley was a prime suspect in Chip Flynn's murder. When police released a composite sketch of the alleged assailant, Tim posted it on the wall of his shop.
And some of the rumor had already been that they're looking for Crosley, that Crosley's one of the suspects.
O'Connor Green saw the sketch posted in Tim's shop.
I remember having some words about it, and I said, that looks like Crosley, like just to see his response. And he was very, outspoken, going, BS, Timmy, damn good and well, that don't look like my brother. And I was trying to maybe pry him a little bit, because in fairness, I like Chip. I'm the one that sold Chip the truck. I was very, very concerned. And I was definitely wanting whoever did this to be brung to justice, so I was, to be honest with you, I was out to help in any way I could.
And so Tim Curtis decided to go to the police with a tip, one that involved a story that he had heard about Crosley Green, a story that had been passed along from this man.
My name is Kerwin Hepburn.
Kerwin Hepburn knew Chip Flynn, Tim Curtis, and Crosley Green, who was known around town as Papa. I spoke to Kerwin in 1999. We sat on a weathered picnic table in the front yard of the house where he lived with his parents. It was an early evening.
Rumor control had it that he did it.
Rumor control?
Rumor control.
What does that mean?
Just gossip in the street, I guess you would call it.
The morning after the murder, April 4th, Kerwin was at work, cutting grass near the orange grove. The area was roped off and full of police activity. Kerwin said that later that day, two of Chip's relatives asked if he had any information about who killed Chip.
And we got to talking, so he said, hey, Kerwin, did you hear anything? And of course, I just, and I told him, rumor has it that such and such took place, and naming Papa Green.
So you told him there was a rumor that Papa Green had done it.
Rumor, and I want to emphasize rumor. I mean, it wasn't nothing that I knew for a fact, or I don't think anybody else knew as for a fact. It was just rumor control. And I guess the rumor started because basically the police was looking for him to question him concerning the murder. And I'm assuming that's how the rumor got started.
That evening, 2 investigators showed up at Kerwin's doorstep.
And said, hey, Kerwin, we need to talk to you. And I was like, for what? Concerning Papa Green, do you know him? Yeah, I know him. Well, we want to talk to you concerning him about this murder you heard about. I don't know nothing about it. But they insisted that I go with them to talk to them and discuss this concerning Papa in this murder case.
Wait a minute, so you told these investigators, clearly you knew nothing
I
about
nothing
it.
about it.
And they still asked you to come in to where? Sheriff's Department?
Exactly.
Kerwin had been on probation at the time of Chip's murder and had not been following the probation requirements. So when the interview began...
Did you feel pressured to give them something? Did you feel you had to?
Well, let me ask you a question. Considering the fact that I was on probation, I wasn't following the probation to the letter T. You make the call.
You felt pressure?
Yeah.
I read some of Kerwin's statements to the police back to him, specifically where he recounted something that he had heard from O'Connor Green.
Look here, in your statement, and this is a tape statement, right?
Mm-hmm.
It says, let's see, I heard O'Connor talking about it, The only thing I really heard was the fact that, his brother was a dumb F for doing it, this and that, more or less, that kind of thing. Was this you talking?
Nah.
You don't...
Nah, and here you go. What I'm saying is, I think they kind of take what I'm trying to say out of context and trying to say that I said that O'Connor said that his brother killed that person. But what I'm saying is, Papa wasn't willing to turn himself in. You understand what I'm saying? He wasn't willing to turn himself in, and his brother was just saying, hey, you're being a dumb F for not doing it, because you need to do it and just go on and face up to it.
But why? If Papa Green didn't commit this murder, why was the big concern about him turning himself in?
Well, you think about it. Now, and I'm gonna make a harsh statement here, and I don't want to offend nobody here, because I'm the only one here of color. It's hard as a black person, okay, you being accused of committing a murder, killing a white person, okay? Your best bet is just go on and turn yourself in, because, reality is, if you sit there and run around on the street, you subject to get shot by a cop, period. That's pretty ugly and hard to say, but that's reality. That's America.
I showed Kerwin a copy of the police composite sketch that was made from Kim Halleck's description of the alleged assailant the morning after the shooting on April 4th, 1989.
Does this look like Crosley Green?
No, it don't.
At all?
No, it don't.
Why not? Why doesn't this look like Crosley Green?
First of all, he got too much hair.
All right.
His nose too big, lips too big. His chin's not made up. Like, his face is too fat. That's not Pop. Not at all. And I know darn well I could have been zooted out of my mind. I would have never said that was Pop, because they don't look nothing like him.
But regardless of Kerwin Hepburn's denials here, it's safe to say that he had been part of the rumor mill that Crosley Green was involved in killing Chip Flynn. That rumor would jump to Chip's relatives, who would then pass that information on to Tim Curtis. But instead of it being called just a rumor, the rumor became fact. Crosley Green had killed Chip Flynn. Tim, who had called the police on April 5th with that information, just added fuel to the fire. On the evening of April 5th, Kim Halleck returned to the sheriff's office with her father to view a photo lineup of 6 black men. When asked to identify the man she claimed robbed and kidnapped her and then killed Chip, She pointed to a photo that was darker than any of the others. It was Crosley Green. Crosley Green and his family had been in the local news on and off for years, since he was a young child. It was Christmas 1966 when a fire destroyed his family's home in Mims. A kerosene heater had exploded. Luckily, everyone was able to escape. An Orlando newspaper reported that the family lost all of their possessions, and the community rallied to help the family. The Green siblings were always close, 11 of them in total. Crosley was the third oldest. I sat down with 3 of them in 2020.
My name is Shirley White, and Crosley Green is my brother.
And just out of curiosity, where are you in the family?
I am the oldest.
My name is O'Connor Green, and I'm Crosley's little brother.
My name is Deborah Green, and I'm Crosley's sister. I'm the third oldest sister.
And where from Crosley?
You don't have to worry. 5. I'm the 5th.
Deborah, how would you describe your brother?
Papa was kind, playful with me. And he was smart.
Shirley told me the origin of Crosley's nickname, Papa.
It just was a name that we just picked out when he was a little boy. And everybody fell in love with it, and very few people called him Crosley because everybody knew him as Papa.
And O'Connor, but there was a reason. I mean, that he was called Papa, wasn't it? I mean, it fit him.
Yeah, he was the favorite boy in the family. When it came to a dad and son relationship, you know, Dad always called him Papa too.
Their father, Booker T. Green, was a truck driver for a Mims citrus firm.
And growing up in Mims, my dad was the only one worked. My mom mostly stayed home and helped us in school and everything, kept the food cooked, kept everything cleaned up around the house and everything.
And while Booker was working, Crosley took on a fatherly role in the family, even towards his older sister, Shirley.
And he would talk to me like a father. Because my father, he was so busy working, even though we know he loved us, but he didn't have the time to just show us and talk to us. Papa was like, he was that father. And when he say something, you would just look at him. And you took heed to what he said. He said, don't do it, you don't do it. He played a big part in my life, even though I was the oldest. He played a very, very special part in my heart.
Crosley played football in high school, but according to Crosley, he dropped out to spend more time working with his father.
He really looked out for the family, and he looked out for the people not people that he didn't even know. He spent a lot of time helping people do things. If you needed any kind of help and he was around, he always gave you a hand.
But there was also an intensely dark side to their family life. The Green children grew up poor, and they were victims of domestic violence, all of which culminated in their parents' horrific murder-suicide in 1977. Shortly after their parents separated, Booker T. Green shot their mother, Constance, twice before shooting himself. Crosley was 19 at the time. O'Connor was 17. And this is when Crosley truly became Papa of the family. Besides his 2 older sisters, Shirley and Tina, most of the Green siblings were minors. Crosley also had a son, Shuma, who was 2 years old.
It was really, really hard. And my brother just stood up as the big brother of our family. And I'm the little brother, and I go to him a lot to help me do a lot of things that I didn't know how to do. My dad taught him. He taught me.
His siblings said that Crosley had actually already taken on a more protective role in the family before their parents' deaths, due to the abuse they had suffered at home as children. But that turbulent home environment took a toll on Crosley and his siblings. There were run-ins with police.
Yeah, how would you describe the Green family reputation?
Not very good.
That's Kerwin Hepburn again.
It wasn't a good family last name to have at that time. The family was, pretty deep in the drug scene and stuff like that. And I feel that the cops wanted all of them off the street. This place has always been pretty well a drug-infested area since like the weeds of the mid-'70s and '80s, and then this crack stuff took off, right? You didn't see police out here until you start seeing white females and white males start coming through that place up there on that corner. Then all of a sudden, now we got a problem.
And when you say whites coming here to buy drugs.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but before that, there was no problem. See, there was no problem. Long as, black selling to black, ain't no problem. But once the Caucasians start coming in, now we got a problem.
Several weeks before Chip Flynn was killed, Crosley had been released from prison after serving time on a drug charge, and that wasn't the first time he had been in trouble. His legal problems had started many years earlier when he was a teen. Crosley had previously been charged with robbery when he was 17. He also pleaded guilty to another robbery in upstate New York. But because he was 18, he was categorized as a youthful offender, and his conviction was vacated. It would not count towards his record. Over the years, his brother O'Connor had also done time in prison relating to theft and burglary. While authorities would deny it, O'Connor thought that after Chip's murder, Crosley and his family became targets.
They tried to get me to come down to the the sheriff's department. So I went down there, and I can't think of the officer who was asking me all these questions and stuff. Where you was, this date. Did you see Crosley that date? They just wanted to know my whereabouts, where I was told towards that night. They wanted to know where I was. And they finally backed up off me.
Well, because you had an alibi, didn't you?
Yeah, they backed up off me and left me alone.
O'Connor's alibi was airtight. He was at a bar with over 60 people at the time of the murder.
I mean, do you think that if you didn't have an alibi, it could be you sitting in prison?
Yeah.
I think there was a desire to just take you off the streets?
The way it looked like it, yes. That's what it really looked like, seemed like to me. They didn't care who it was, as long as they got somebody. That's all they were looking for.
But when did you find out you were a suspect?
When did I find out I was a suspect? Maybe a day or 2 days after that was the main suspect.
And what was your reaction?
What was my reaction to that? Was that, here I go again.
Here I go again. As you've already heard, Crosley was no stranger to run-ins with the law, and yet he had never been convicted of a violent crime.
But why would people in your neighborhood, I mean, you grew up in Mims, think you could do something like this?
For number one, it ain't what they think, it's what they have been told. From what one person been told, Then he takes it to another person, and another person takes it to another person, and in that change, everything get turned around.
One day into the investigation, things were not looking good for Crosley Green. Crosley had been in Holder Park. He had gone to a baseball game earlier on the night of the killing. A former classmate of Crosley's told police that he had been at the same game and said Crosley had been wearing a plain green army jacket, which matched Kim's initial description to police of what her alleged assailant had worn. Hours after the shooting, a canine unit sniffed shoe prints in Holder Park and reported that the dog had tracked a scent to a nearby intersection, right next to a house that belonged to one of Crosley's sisters, Tina. Tim Curtis told police that he had seen Crosley at Tina's house when he was jogging that afternoon. Tim also told investigators that he thought the police sketch did in fact look like Crosley Green. After Kim Halleck pointed to Crosley in a photo lineup, police secured a warrant for his arrest. Crosley's name and photo were released in news reports on April 7, 1989, as the suspect in Chip Flynn's murder, the same day as Chip's funeral. But before police could arrest Crosley, he left the state, kicking off a nationwide search.
But did you know the police were looking for you?
Of course. Of course. What am I supposed to do?
Turn yourself in?
Oh, no. Oh, no. Oh, no. I don't get along with them people down there. My family don't get along with the law enforcement down there. We have had run-ins.
Leaving the area certainly made Crosley Green look guilty. 2 months later, an anonymous caller tipped off police that Crosley had returned to Brevard County, and Crosley was arrested on June 8th, a little over 2 months after Chip's death.
1989, and this recording is taking place in the Sheriff's Homicide Squad offices in Parkway, Florida. Crosley, just for the record, would you state your full name and spell your last name, please?
Crosley Green, Green.
Okay.
This is Crosley's original police interview. It's an archival recording from 1989. Crosley is sometimes difficult to understand, and there are background noises later that sound like tapping.
You've been a hard fellow to find.
Have I?
Yeah.
They read Crosley his Miranda rights.
All right, Mr. Green, this reads as follows. I, Crosley Alexander Green, have been advised and have had explained to me my constitutional rights as follows, okay? And they are, number one, I have the right to remain silent. Do you understand that?
Yes.
And
Two.
the charges.
You're accused of robbing 2 white kids, a boy and a girl, up behind your sister Tina's house at Holder Park, as you know. And tying this young man up and driving his truck on up to the Grove in Mims and taking the girl out of the truck. And as you know, she sort of struggled a little bit and tried to run away from you. Ran around the tailgate of the truck, in fact. And then he got out shooting. And, you know, what we don't understand, all along he had the gun, even though his hands were tied. He couldn't shoot at you because she was sitting between the two of you, as you know. And when the shooting started, she got in the truck and put the haul ass on him. And, of course, he shows up dead, and you're accused of doing that.
Listening to the recording, I'm struck by how often the officer describes the crime and then adds, "as you know," speaking as if he was sure Crosley was guilty. But as far as Crosley was concerned, this had nothing to do with him.
I mean, you know, let's get something straight, you know, all right? Who y'all looking for? I don't know. I ain't do it. And I'm saying I ain't doing nothing.
It's hard to hear clearly, but Crosley was insisting, "I didn't do it. I'm saying I didn't do nothing." But at this point, things were not looking good for Crosley. everything seemed to be aligning against him, perhaps a little too perfectly. But upon closer examination of the evidence, a different picture was emerging. The question was whether this new perspective would come to light at trial. On the next episode of Murder in the Orange Grove, the troubled case against Crosley Green,
I believed Crosley Green. I said, there's no jury in the world that's going to convict him based on these facts.
Murder in the Orange Grove was reported by me, Erin Moriarty, alongside producers Alan Pang, Annie Cronenberg, and Allison Bailey. Kiara Norbitz is our coordinating producer, and Florence Barreau-Adams is our story editor. Additional production support from Dylan Gordon, Marlon Polycarp, Caroline Casey, and Christine Driscoll. Judy Tygart is the executive producer of 48 Hours. Gail Zimmerman, Asena Basak, Mark Goldbaum, Charlotte Fuller, Judy Ryback, and Stephen McCain produced the original 48 Hours episodes. Associate producers were Michael Loftus and Shaheen Toki. Patty Aronofsky was the senior producer. Special thanks to Megan Marcus, Jamie Benson, Nick Poser, and Gail Spruill.
Paramount Podcasts.